Good morning. My name is Jacqueline Callie. I'm an attorney at Meisner, Tierney, Fisher & Nichols, and I'm here to introduce this breakout session, The Power of No, Boundaries, Balance, and Bold Decisions. I'm very proud to be a part of a firm that supports such a fantastic event like this. It's been so great so far, so many meaningful connections and networking opportunities. And I'm so excited to be introducing this particular session. I'm terrible at saying no. I'm sure a lot of us are. Family, friends, kids, work. Unless you're inviting me out at 9 p.m. to have a drink, which I will very, very quickly tell you no, I'm terrible at saying no. So hopefully we all walk out of here with renewed motivation and confidence. So I'm going to turn this over to Jessica, our moderator.
Yeah, hi. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here, for sticking around. I know it's been a long morning. I don't know about you guys, but my ADHD brain is like exploding with all this takeaway information, insightful information. So thanks for sticking around. I hope that we can leave you guys with some more takeaways. We have phenomenal women on this panel, The Power of No, Boundaries, Balance, and Bold Decisions. And these women are in various phases of their careers, different careers. So I think that's going to be helpful because the power of no changes throughout career. And I want to introduce them. Tiffany Wynn, who's right next to me. Tiffany is the Senior Director of Marketing for Ascension Healthcare. She's been working in marketing and communications for 15 years and is a proud Milwaukee native. Marilyn Thiet, she is the CEO and President of Edge Performance Acceleration, a company she founded after many years at GE Healthcare. Her work focuses on executive coaching, leadership development, and strategic planning with clients around the country. And then we have Stephanie Krubsack. Stephanie is a global brand strategist and sustainability leader, CEO of 2 ventures, world traveler to 50-plus countries. I'm jealous about that. And the creator of Person and Planet magazine and podcast. So welcome all of you. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for that, yes. We appreciate it. You guys have all had, we've talked about this, we had a little meeting before this. You've all had sort of like a pivotal no moment. Tiffany, let's start with you. Yours involved a work situation, a work promotion. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, hello everyone. Tiffany Wynn. And I came to a point in my career, and this was probably about 10 years ago, where I had decided that I had been doing public relations for 10 years, and I said, hey, I want to transition into marketing, and created a career roadmap for myself. And I was very intentional about researching the companies I wanted to work for, the industries I wanted to be in, and what roles I wanted to pursue. And so all 3 of those stars aligned, and I had an interview. I went through an interviewing process with an organization I wanted to be at, and an industry I wanted to be in, with a role that I had desired. Well, I went through the interviewing process. I did not get the role. However, they came back to me and they said, hey, we have another role that we believe will be perfect for you. And at that time, I wasn't ready to say no, but I went through the interviewing process, and it would have kept me on this path of staying in public relations. And so although I had 2 of the 3 stars aligned for myself, and when they made the offer, I said to myself, okay, I had to go back to my career roadmap, and I had to say, Tiffany, this is not really what you want. This may be the industry, this may be the organization, but this is taking you further away from this career roadmap in terms of how you want your career to pivot. And so I had to make the hard decision of saying no at that time, and being very intentional and focused on what is my career roadmap. And it was scary to say no, because sometimes you think that's a missed opportunity. Those stars will never align again. 2 out of 3, how do you know this opportunity will present itself again? Well, I went out on faith and hope, and eventually and ultimately, all 3 stars aligned.
They aligned me with a female executive to be a mentor, and man, I was like, this is it, I'm on this leadership path. But I have to say, even when I said yes, there was this little thing inside of me going, wait a minute, I already work 50 hours a week. At the time, that is pretty much what the company demanded. I'm already working 50 hours a week. I have 2 preteens and all the junk that goes along with that. You know, I have a home, I have a husband, I have, a personal life that I friends and things like that. But yes, of course I want to do this. And so that was April. In June of that year, my father was diagnosed with esophageal cancer. My parents lived in Florida, and I'm an only child, so I just always get emotional talking about this, but I'm not going to apologize for that. My parents lived in Florida. I was living here. I was trying to manage everything with him. I also had a healthcare background to start with, so I could go in and talk the talk with the doctors. I was trying to fly to Florida, be there, still work this 50-hour-a-week job, and still be, a parent and everything else. And I reached a point where I thought, something's going to break here, because I felt like I was juggling the balls, but they were getting sloppy in the air. And I realized it was going to be me that was going to break. So I made the choice to walk away from the job. Now, I could have taken family leave, right? All the qualifications were there. I had a very sick father, but instead I just chose to totally walk away. And it was hard. I knew I was getting off the GE leadership train, so to speak, but it was the best decision, and I ended up in so much of a better place for the entire rest of my career. So I said no, it was hard, but it was the best decision I ever made.
And that was probably something that you will never regret, spending that time
I will never regret. I quit my official quit date or last day of work, I think it was July 1, and my father passed away September 2. So no way could I regret that 2 months that I could focus on him.
That's powerful. And Stephanie, I know for you, your first no, you've had a couple of big no moments, was early on. You were in law school. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I was raised, you should make money, go to school. I was actually the first college grad in my family. And so my parents really pushed that, but I was always a natural creative, and I wanted to be an artist, but that was not an option. So I was on this trajectory of going to law school. And if you look at every job I had in undergrad or before, it was always in the creative space. But I still went. I went to Michigan, and you have those moments where a thought pops into your head and it's not maybe from you, but my first day in law school, this thought crosses through my mind. It's like, Stephanie, what are you doing here? That was like the first time I admitted that this was not for me, it was not a good fit. I did stay for a full year, but it really was a defining moment where I was thinking, like, why am I doing something because my parents had wanted me to? What I thought I should be doing. So I took that power back. I left after a year, not a great time. It was in 2009 during the recession. But I really think that because I did that and I had maybe things were more up in the air, open-ended. I didn't have the trajectory of 3 years of law school, a year of studying for the bar, taking the bar, then going to work. I had no options, really. I basically was starting over. And it was a bit challenging during the depression, but, or not depression, but during the recession. But I did have this opportunity where I was able to be in a pageant and travel abroad and meet my family, connected after 5 generations. So amazing life experience. I got to go abroad to the Czech Republic because I wasn't in law school. And that really just changed my trajectory to have this more global mindset of what I'm doing today. So yeah, that was my first big no.
A formative no. It kind of formed what you would do next. So that's really amazing. And I want to go back to you, Marilyn, because I think some of the most difficult times to say no are high-stakes situations with a boss or a client, or when you're in a company where the culture is you don't say no. And now my background is television news, and you don't say no because there's 300 other people that will take your job and make less money. And so if they say, come in at 2 a.m. to cover that train derailment, or work 16 hours a day during a political campaign, that's what you do. So how do you do that? How do you say no without burning bridges?
So I think that's a great question. And I think, as I recall, even at that time, I was thinking of all the negatives that could come along with this. I'm hopping off this leadership track at GE. I am, and I left with no plan. I did not have a plan. So holy cow, I was a huge contributor to our family, income. How am I going to deal with that? And I think for me, the other toughest thing was because women in leadership was still rare at that moment in time, I felt I was going to let down every woman in the entire company because everybody would say, oh, there goes the woman saying no because of some family-related, kind of thing. And I wish I could say, I wish there was a magic bullet of how do you make these decisions in these high-stakes situations, but I was so authentic to myself and what it was the right thing to do that, I had a great conversation with the men I was reporting to at the time, and I prefaced it, right? I prefaced it with, this is a great company. I want to be here. I want to be working, but I have had to make the toughest decision of my life. And I felt there was no animosity. I don't feel they were actually empathetic. So I think someone said in the last session, men actually can be empathetic. There was a comment about that. And what was interesting is after my father died in September 2nd, about the 20th of September, I got a call from my boss at GE. I'm sorry, I heard your father, passed. We really need some consulting help. Can you just come in and, help us? So I knew I didn't burn a bridge. I don't know if that answered the question.
Do either of you have anything to add to that? I know in healthcare marketing, it's probably tough to say no. And I think also for women, sometimes we feel like a badge of honor to be able to say yes to everything, our families, our social groups, our work. And then sometimes when you say no, do you feel like a failure? Do you feel like it's weak? I don't know if you have anything to add to that, either of you.
I would just add that when you're in a high-stakes situation and you know that you have to say no to something, can you connect it back to a why and a value? And in Marilyn's case, the value was family. And the why was, I need to spend this time with my family because this is a life or death situation for my dad. And so I need to be there for him. It's important for me to be present. And so I think people have to respect other people's values and what they place first in their lives and have to jump on board with that. And so if there is a high-stakes situation and you need to say no, and I know, sometimes we say no is a complete sentence, right? I've heard that quite a bit. But in a situation when it's high stakes, it can't be a complete sentence. You do need to explain. You need to explain it with your why and then connect that to a value.
Yeah, I think in regards to burning bridges or to not burn bridges, so really changing the narrative when you get a no that causes you to pivot, it's how you respond to it. That you're keeping that bridge open and you're letting your pride, setting that to the side, where I received a no for a director position I was referred to, but they said, and I was devastated. I cried, I was very upset. I wanted it so badly, and I thought I had it because I was referred, but then they said, actually, we think you'd be better at this editor-in-chief role. And because I made the decision to, apply for that, I ended up getting it, and it was life-changing. And it was the best decision that could have been for me at the time. So you also have to take the no's that you get and how you pivot and respond to that.
Oh, absolutely. Now, have any of you ever said yes and then instantly regretted it? I know I have before.
Yeah, for me, it was one time at work, and one of the executives had said, we're starting this new DEI committee, and I would love for you to be a part of it. And I felt obligated to be a part of it because I was one of the only people that fit in the category who could be a part of it. And I said, so I said yes, but I immediately regretted it, and the reason why, it wasn't because I don't believe in DEI and I didn't want to help the company go through the changes and make the progress that they wanted to make. Is because I knew I had 3 other major projects at the time that I was working on. And for me to add something else to my plate, it was a time commitment issue. And so I immediately regretted it. I went to the first meeting, and then I just started to see how this was not going to fit into the schedule, because there was a time commitment there and work that needed to be done, and I couldn't show up the way I wanted to show up. So I did have to go back to that executive and say, hey, right now is not the right time, but what I can promise you is that when it is the right time, I will come back to you and I will rejoin this committee.
And how did they take that?
They took it well. Of course, you know, they took it well. They took it well.
Yeah, and I would say I have said yes to so many things that I have then regretted that it's even hard to pinpoint one. I actually feel I have done it more in my world outside of work. You know, and so first of all, I'm a huge believer we don't have a work life and home life. We have one gnarly, messy life that has a work component and it has outside of work components. But I'd say the outside of work components, you know, I wanted to prove that a working mother could still bake 500 cupcakes on a day's notice for the swim meet bake sale or whatever it may be. And also I have, I do a lot of work in the nonprofit world, right? And I had a lot of nonprofits coming to me, you know, will you be on this? Will you do this? Will you do this? And I had to sort of reach a point where I said, stop. I love what Tiffany said, going back to the values. For me, I had walked a difficult journey alongside my mother who had dementia for many years, and so to me, I have a passion for Alzheimer's and everything, you know, related to Alzheimer's and dementia. So I decided to say no to multiple things and just say yes to, you know, working on, I'm actually on the board, on the executive committee of the Alzheimer's Association. So I think sometimes being really clear what you want to say yes to helps you be able to say no to the things that you really shouldn't.
And I would imagine that's an evolution over time, right? It doesn't, you guys probably haven't always been able to say no like you are able to now.
Yeah, I guess another example of that when I regretted saying yes was I agreed to work for a company in Colorado for equity. So I ran their social media for almost a year, and the company ended up disappearing. The investor, everything disappeared, all the social pages. So I think that really made me realize that when you agree to do something, you really have to be clear about what benefit are you getting from it and to know your value. So if you are doing something as a trade or for equity, that can be okay, but look at what are you doing? Are you maybe learning from somebody that could be a mentor that's leading up this organization, or what you're doing in this project, are those skills that you can transfer to somewhere else? So really look at what value you're getting from it and being very clear about it, and also trusting your intuition. Are they very transparent about what the negotiation or deal is?
And when I was thinking about this, I was thinking that at the bottom of saying no often is probably fear, right? Fear of not getting that next opportunity, fear of missing out on something, fear of not being asked again, just fear of what maybe people think. So how do we sort of overcome that fear?
So I'm happy to start with that one. First and foremost, we have got to start fact-checking the stories we're telling ourselves in our heads, right? Because everything you just listed, right, all these examples, oh, if I say no to this, I'll never have another job offer. If I say no to this, I'm going to miss out, nobody's going to invite me again. Whatever it is, that so many times that is just not true. And that if you back yourself out, become sort of the investigative reporter, I know we have all these journalistic people in the room, really, Marilyn, will that really happen? Are you never going to get invited again? Are you never going to have another job opportunity again? And 90% of the time, the story in your head is actually false. So my thing is fact check. Fact check your own stories and look at a more realistic, what really could happen if I say no?
I love that, the fact check. Yes, that is amazing. And also there's this quote that I like too that says faith over fear. Again, going out, stepping out on faith, you may not see what's ahead of you, but again, you have to believe that just because this one opportunity came up this one time, right, that it will present itself again. And belief will take all, and I'm sure you all have your stories in your own life, belief can take you a long way. It can. And I want to say, too, something else that I heard, and it's a recurring theme on this panel, is that if it's not a clear yes, it is a no. If it's not a clear yes, it is a no, and we are all out of maybes. There's no maybe. It needs to be a clear yes or it's an absolute no.
As a single person, I apply that to dating life too. I learned that a long time ago. Also, a lot of us have FOMO. This is what FOMO is, right? So we have to overcome the FOMO. We're going to have other opportunities. We're going to make way for the things that we really want to do that align with our goals if we're able to say no. And I'm curious, we did talk a little bit about this when we met earlier about the generational differences, and I've heard that come up in several of the sessions today, talking about the younger generation and how they might have a little bit easier of a time saying no. There's more conversations about mental health, about self-care, I feel like. This is just my own opinion. Do you guys see this in the workforce, in your experiences? Is it a good thing? Is it not a good thing? Tell me a little bit about your thoughts there.
Yeah, I guess, I have noticed with generational differences a bit. So, for example, for reference, I'm 39, but a lot of my girlfriends are maybe a decade younger, and I'm noticing that they're saying no at an earlier age than I was. Like, I feel like I'm at a place where I'm realizing it now because I didn't know I could say no to some things. So I do feel like it's getting progressively easier because, I mean, if we look at the facts, women could only take out loans or have a credit card from the 70s, right? Was it 74, I believe? I mean, so we're still building up from what the world used to be. So I have seen, as time goes on, I think we are more empowered to say no. So that's one thing I've definitely noticed.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Tiffany.
I was just going to say, from my own experience, Gen Z is a bold generation. And, I love that they do challenge the status quo, I will say that. And they are making some positive changes in the right direction. I think that they are much more comfortable saying no and unapologetically standing on it. They are. And it is inspiring at times, but then it's also, I think you have to grapple with the fact, if you came from a different generation, like you said, well, I couldn't do that, and I didn't know that I could do that. And so then you start to feel a certain way about it, and then you kind of project that onto them. Mm-hmm. But really, you wished that was the climate when you were in your generation. And so I think sometimes we project that back to them, but we have to take a step back and say, hey, I wish I could have said no. I wish I would have been more in charge of my career and what I wanted for myself early on. And so that's what I do appreciate about Gen X. And, it's just through experience. And when I was younger, I said yes to everything, right? Because I still was discovering myself. I was in a discovery phase. And how do you know what you're good at and what you're bad at and what you like and you don't like if you've never experienced before? And so I still was trying to discover myself and develop. And saying yes to things when you're younger, it is a part of professional development, character development, personal development. And so I think that's important, but I think Gen Z, they come out the womb knowing exactly who they are. And more power to them. That just was not my case.
And I think the thing I would add, I loved what Tiffany said about, they say no unapologetically. And as an executive coach, working with leaders, and especially when I've worked with female executive leaders, we've got to stop apologizing. If I say no, even today, my husband just tells me all the time, somebody will call and they want us to do a social thing, and I'll say no. I don't say no, we have other plans, or just no. I have to go into this whole thing, I'm so sorry we can't because we really would like to, and we'd love to be seeing you guys more, and it's just like, stop apologizing. And I think that's the big difference. I think maybe we said no, not as much as Gen Z does, but we always had to wrap so much guilt and apology boundaries around it. And so I love the fact that they're doing that. The other thing I would say is a lot of the female, and I shouldn't say female, all of the executives that I coach, I hear this, oh, this Gen Z, and they're not willing to work as hard, and da-da-da-da. And I have basically said the workforce has changed. There have been a series of events starting, I saw COVID being kind of the tipping point, series of events. We have a different workforce in place now, whether they're Gen Z or even other generations. I think the other generations are more empowered to say no. And as leaders, we have to meet them where they are. We've got to stop saying, oh, they're bad and they can't do this. It's like, this is the workforce of today. So let's talk about what we need to do to adapt to that. When do we try to influence them, and when do we try to learn from them?
And along those lines, playing devil's advocate, there's a time that we shouldn't say no, right? I mean, earlier in our careers, we need to pay our dues. We need to put in the work. So at what point do we say yes and not no?
I just think that comes with experience, right? When you had said something earlier that really resonated with me, when you said no is an evolution. Saying no, and even at where I'm at now, and where I am in the state I am in today, I'm still evolving to say no. It is a work in progress. And so I think it just comes with experience. That all those times you said yes in those experiences, it's going to get you to the experiences of saying no eventually.
Yeah, I would say a good time to say yes would be to get as much, I guess, hands-on experience or shadowing as possible, because you don't always know what you like or want to do until you're actually doing it. And I've learned this many times where you maybe want to get a certification and you're doing it and then you're like, actually, I don't love this. But I would say to shadow as much as possible. So say yes to that. Say yes to individuals that are offering to be a mentor. That's huge, because I think when you're a younger individual or at any stage of life, if we don't say yes to those offers for help, that's really important, because sometimes it's hard to go seek that out. So that would be another time to say yes.
And I'm just going to mention something that was actually mentioned in the main session today, and I wish right now I could remember who said it, so I apologize, it was about decision-making in times of uncertainty, and it was, you don't have to make a decision right then and there. And I think I was one, again, I used to say reformed, it's reforming, I'll be reforming till I take my last breath, people pleaser, right? So yes was the first thing that came out of my mind, because I want to please everybody around me. And just learning, even if you're going to end up with yes, being able to say, you know what, give me 24 hours, or I just need to think about this, and I'll get back to you. Now, I know you can't do that in every situation, and certainly over little things, yes, it can come more easily, but then you go back and think, if I say yes, what if? If I say no, what if? And then you figure out what is the right thing to do, because they're definitely, I'm not going to echo what both Tiffany and Stephanie have said. There are times, yes, we absolutely should be saying yes.
Right. Yeah, definitely just take a moment to think about it. Do you think that there is a difference between how women are perceived for saying no and men are perceived when saying no? Who wants to take that one?
Well, I'm going to just start with, I think there's definitely a difference, first of all, in how men say no and how women say no. Because again, men, I'm not going to say they just say no, but they're like, oh, would love to help, but no, I can't. Where me, I put 17 paragraphs around it of all the reasons I can't, and I'm so sorry, and all of that. And we almost make a bigger, and I'm saying we, I'll just say me, I make a bigger spectacle and I draw more attention to the fact I'm saying no, because I'm dragging it out to this whole big thing. So I think, are women perceived differently for saying no? I don't know at the true heart of things if they are, but I think the way we say it, the way I at least say it, because I don't want to include you in all my bad habits, that's what causes that difference, in my opinion.
Stephanie, what about you? Have you seen that in your experience?
Yeah, I think that it's more well received from men than women. When we say no, it's more offensive sometimes. Like, for example, I even had somebody recently, a startup, asked if I would work for free for marketing.
no.
I'm like, no. Or could you do like a trial with us? It's like, well, you can see Exhibit A, what I've done. So that's been interesting. So yeah, I think that it's assumed that we won't say no, maybe, I think, is what I've come across to this day.
I think people are used to women giving a whole lot of explanation. Even when I get a no personally, it's like, oh, just a no, not why not? Why can't you come? You know, but we have to learn also to accept that, you know, no is no. Have you guys ever found that saying no actually boosts your credibility, your influence? People have respect for that?
Not so much boost my credibility or influence, but I do think it made people aware and put them on notice as to what I will say no to and what I would say yes to. And it helped me define boundaries just by simply communicating a yes or a no. And then they know in the future what to ask of me. And I think that that's important. And you know, you may not see it right away, but people are taking notice what you say no or yes to, whether that's good or bad. But you have definitely created boundaries for yourself. And people take notice and they're aware, and that's great because they know now what they need to ask of you.
I think in that case, too, if you're too available, whether that's personally and professionally, that could be taken advantage of, or maybe not, I guess, looking at the value of that as much. So you have to really look at, you know, when you're saying yes to things, how does that feel to you? Is it cutting into your personal time, your work time? So it has to be a really healthy balance to make sure that you're not saying yes too much, that it takes away from what you need to be successful. And again, prioritizing, you know, or analyzing, should I say yes to this, and what would the return be? And I mean, it doesn't have to always be transactional, but to really look at how you feel that you're not overextending yourself, because I think sometimes that can happen as women a lot. We want to fix, we want to help, we want to do every 10 things at one time. So yeah, just learning to prioritize that, so people do acknowledge and value your time when you do say no.
And I didn't bring my phone up here, so I don't know how much time we have left.
It's 11:52.
Okay, so does anybody have any questions for any of the panelists about strategies for saying no? Somebody back there, and then we'll wrap it up after that. Oh.
Hi, my name is Erica. I'm a big Tiffany Wynn fan. I have a question about, we've all said yes when we need no. And we have age and wisdom to learn from that. Are there any, like, a checklist that you've created for yourself to say, oh, when I feel this, or when for me, when I reach out to all my friends asking them what their opinion, that's like a red flag. Like, have you found anything in your life as like wisdom that you can share with us? Like, try these 4 things before you say yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Even though she's your fan, can I answer? Please. I will tell you, and I learned this many years ago, and it's something I still do today. I get very clear on my top priorities, whether they are work priorities or personal, and I blend them. I actually have a graphic always on my office, and it changes all the time, with what my top 5 priorities are. And usually, I would say in the past, it's been usually 4 of them are work-related priorities and 1 is more of a personal one. I am getting the point now where that's shifting for me, and I have it in my line of sight so that when I answer the phone or when I'm going to answer an email for an ask, someone's going to ask me something, I immediately run through, does this align with one of these top priorities? And sometimes I've made that line pretty shaky of how I really tied it to one, but if I can say yes, it aligns with one of my top priorities, the answer is yes. If I can't find any link, then I will say, I would love to help you with that. However, right now, I really have to prioritize X, Y, Z. And then I usually try to throw a bone, but I did something like that last year. I'll send you the PowerPoint, or I know so-and-so wants to do it, because of course I can never just say a hard no. But this sort of line of sight document that I keep in front of me is my tool that I use.
And how about you, Tiffany?
Similarly to what she just said, at the beginning of every year, because again, I'm evolving, and every year my goals and priorities change. And so at the beginning of every year, I do some goal setting. It doesn't have to be a long list of goals. Just pick 1 or 3 and say, hey, these are my goals for the year. And whenever faced with an opportunity or a decision that you need to make, and it's a yes or a no, look back at those goals, and that should help guide you in making those decisions, and that should help guide to what you say yes to, and it should help guide you to what you say no to.
Somebody back there.
I would say 2 things to help with that would be think on it for a day. So if your answer is not an immediate yes, give yourself a day to think on it. And I'm pretty sure it'll come to you what the answer should be. And then secondly, to really prioritize your time. And if you're not sure if you should say yes or no, somebody wants to pick your brain. I know I hate that. I don't know if any of you get that. Can I have a call with you to pick your brain? Okay, fine. It's great to help people. But push it back on them and say, okay, great, would love to. Please jot down 3 questions or 3 things you want to cover. 99% of the time, they won't get back to you. Then that solved that problem, right? So just like, it's just like, it's putting it back on people that your time is so precious and valuable that, okay, I would love to help, but what do you want to ask me about, right? So that would be another thing too, that you can say. It's a silent no sometimes.
One more question.
I saw a video. I saw a video of a woman leader, and she was asked the question, she was talking about balance in her life, and someone asked her, how do you balance between work and family, and she just flat out said she doesn't. So, and I think this all kind of ties into saying no, and I've also heard other themes today around there is no separate work self and personal self, and it all is just sort of this jumbled mess. So this all, I guess, leads to my question is, how do you feel about, when you are saying no, and there, is there some sort of decision tree you go through in terms of work versus personal, and you got to it a little bit about what your priorities are, but I think it all translates into that balance and being able to say no, and just wondered if you guys have any comments about that or thoughts.
Yeah, if I could just share a short story. So I would say be intentional about reclaiming your time. And there's a film producer who I absolutely adore. Her name is Mara Brock-Akil, and she got a prestigious award in her industry. And then she phoned a friend, a legendary Debbie Allen, and said, hey, I want to honor you next. And Debbie said, no. And she said, although I'm flattered, I do not have any casual time to give, and this will take me away from my work, my restoration, and my family. And so Mara said that made her rethink everything that she said yes to moving forward, and whether or not it benefited others or it moved the needle toward her dreams. And what she did was reclaim her time. And so what I would say is be intentional about reclaiming your time.
And that was great. That just leads into some of the takeaways. I know we love takeaways. We've had so many takeaways this morning, I'm sure. But there was one quote that I came across when I was looking into this. It's what you don't do determines what you do. And that was pretty powerful, because when you don't say no, you don't leave room for the things that align with your own goals. So takeaways, you just kind of had one. Yeah. What are your takeaways that we can leave the audience with on this?
I think for me, when we talked an earlier question about, what are we fearing? If we say no, what's going to happen and all the bad things that might happen? And we are resilient. So if we say no and those bad things happen, we don't get asked again about a job opportunity or whatever, you're resilient. You can get through it. So I think, to me, it's It's what's the worst that could happen? Is anybody going to die from the fact that I say no? Now, can't say that in healthcare and some other fields, but that is just my thing. If the worst happens, I'll get through it.
Love that.
Yeah, I would say really get in touch with your intuition. So what is your initial gut response to something, and to not have a mindset of scarcity. So if you say no to a promotion or no to a client, just know that that no means that something more aligned will find its way to you. So you could have a case where you end a contract and within the week you replace it because something aligned, came to you or you found. So I think that's really important to always trust that and not think that, oh, what if this is it? It's never it. So there's always more.
Love that. All right, big round of applause for these amazing panelists. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, guys.